table. The Caitlyn ban remaining consistent against Uzi. Now, of course, our focus is on the mid lane, and we haven't seen any bans there yet. Do you expect that we will see Syndra banned once again?
Yeah, probably both Syndra and Ryze gonna get banned, and this time they leave Nidalee open for the first pick because they have Blank in, and he actually plays pretty mean Nidalee. But I'm not sure if RNG are afraid of his Nidalee or not. We're gonna see it soon.
Ryze, of course, as predicted. Now the question is, does SKT risk not banning Syndra here, risk leaving the Syndra up and hoping to get it first pick, or do they have to be scared of the mlxg Nidalee?
We're gonna see it soon. It's more of if SKT gonna be afraid of, I mean, if RNG gonna be afraid of SKT Syndra or SKT Nidalee, I think they wanna ban. I would be more afraid of Syndra. I would probably leave Nidalee open, and then just try to outplay it and just finally, I don't know, just like. I would say all the junglers didn't look that impressive, and FAKER looked, I mean, looked pretty impressive, even though like in winning game and losing game. So I'd rather, but as we see, they ban Nidalee and they value Nidalee ban. Maybe they actually have a counter pick and Vladimir, and they're totally fine with Vladimir into Syndra matchup.
How do you feel about that matchup there, LS? Vladimir versus Syndra, as SKT do now get their hands on the champion. The champion has been banned in every single RNG game up until this point.
I mean, Syndra versus Vladimir. Vladimir's considered like a soft counter, but honestly, I mean, this is a team setting. This isn't solo queue, so eventually Syndra does become Syndra in the sense that she can multi-stun and completely just delete the ADC or the jungler, depending on who it is. So giving FAKER Syndra is also a little bit questionable because he's going to be one of the best mid laners on her at the tournament. And we also saw what he did do with it against Jensen. So I'm not so comfortable with RNG's decision to do that.
This is the softest language I've ever heard you use, LS. Is this, do you think, a game-defining decision already this early in the draft?
Yeah.
100%. Seems like it could be a rough path for RNG. We'll have to see if they want to go for the Vladimir one more time. But the Olaf is now in the hands of Blank, matched up against the Lee Sin. Gnar as well coming out for Duke on the top side. SKT revealing all of their solo lane picks very early on.
Yeah, I wanted to say maybe we'll finally see Aurelion Sol because everyone's rumoring that Aurelion Sol actually does really well into Syndra. But I'm not sure about that. Because like, I mean, Aurelion Sol I think would be better, but I think they're so afraid of FAKER pressure, especially with Blank. But Aurelion Sol, he should be doing well into Syndra. Like he can sustain this lane, he can even pressure her. And then he's actually not that vulnerable against Olaf because he gets the Storm Raider surge and he can, like if he does enough damage, he can just run away and Olaf is like only slow. So until you get stunned by Syndra in a really bad moment, you usually are not that afraid of getting ganked. So I think they're just afraid to put the, like, how to say, axe into the basket of XIAOHU. And they want to play around their top lane and bot lane, and they still want to have him as a neutralizer for all the pressure FAKER puts in. And I mean, I'm not sure about that. It's just like it's either XIAOHU not believing in himself, or they just like have another plan and they don't believe in him carrying the game against FAKER, and they just want to put it on Uzi.
Yeah, or the team doesn't really want to put the faith in him. We will see. We're gonna have to we have finally once again the Zyra Jhin versus Ezreal Karma, so it looks to be set up. SKT decide on their final rotation. That is what it's going to be in the end. But we're focusing on the mid lane stream this time around, and it's not going to be Victor Vladimir. It's not going to be Victor Vars. It's not going to be 100% a farm lane. But how do we look at the early game unfolding here? Syndra versus Vladimir. LS, you said at some point Syndra becomes Syndra. Is that going to be an early game? When does Syndra really come online?
Syndra comes online at level 9, even if she doesn't have Morel and Omicron, because her lethal against most mid-range, or mid-mages is going to be 800 and 900 HP, with just a basic combo, and that's really scary, because that means that a lot of mid laners are vulnerable. Vladimir, not so much, because of how he tends to itemize, and also he does have that pool. But the problem is going to arise when Syndra is able to just instantly delete Jhin, Lee Sin, Rumble, or Zyra with a full combo at 2 items or 3 items. And that's going to be really problematic.
So while we have seen this lane be really powerful on the bottom side, we never had someone that could just delete Zyra, could just delete some of these more vulnerable squishy supports. Do you feel like now the Zyra pick is going to be much weaker in this game because it is targeted out by the Syndra?
It depends, because we can remember FAKER playing stuff like LeBlanc, right, in the previous seasons. When they have vision, he just like jumps in and likes to delete those squishy supports that was meta, right? But at the same time, it's RNG, they're playing that weird style that there is a chance that they will start setting up vision and they will try catching. And at the same time, Zyra can one-shot Syndra. Syndra doesn't build health that much. Maybe Rylai's, right? But most of the time, yeah, I think it just depends. If Zyra can unleash all her combo before dying, it's not really worth it for Syndra even using ult for her that much. Because if Zyra used all her abilities, she's already useless and already her plants are there. So, and then it just depends on how Jhin plays. And Uzi, until he tilts, right, or until they fall behind, he usually plays really spectacular game and he plays really safe. And it's really hard for me to say that I think I don't really agree on Olaf combined with Syndra. I would like to see Rek'Sai. First of all, you can give the blue buff early for Syndra to pressure. You can go together. And when you have Olaf, it's really hard for him to ensure the pressure mid lane. And then he's like that clearing jungle. We saw the game where they had Cassio and Syndra and Olaf together. This is the only game they lost, where Olaf just couldn't play around the mid lane that much, while FAKER had a pressure mid laner, and he actually played Cassio into Vladimir too, I think. Or no, he played into Aurelion Sol. But still, like, at some point, FAKER can go too aggressive, and he won't have that much, support from the Olaf that Lee Sin and Vladimir can actually have a chance to kill him. And if Vladimir gets ahead in this matchup or equal, I think eventually it will be really hard to kill him, because again, like, no one has Ignite, or like, I mean, FAKER will have Morel and Omicron, so it's still better than Victor, but it could be hard to kill Vladimir.
Interesting. LS, earlier today you were tweeting out Olaf, not excited to see the pick. Now I know this is a mid lane focus, but why don't you just give us a quick rundown on your thoughts on Olaf, as it looks like Blank has used Ghost.
Well, Olaf, I mean, all right, I will acknowledge that he does have a very powerful early game, and he also does have some cheese factors that he can make use of that other junglers can't. My issue with Olaf, though, is that he is an all-in champion, where if he doesn't find advantages early or mid, there's not very many champions in the meta. In fact, there's almost no champions in the meta right now that synergize with him perfectly, such as like a Lulu or a Zillion would. And so what ends up happening is if you do reach it to the mid to the late game transition, Olaf's just this wrecking ball that he's completely reliant on his ultimate to be useful, and even then it's not that scary.
Yeah, I like Olaf with champions like Vladimir or something. Like, I would like Olaf on RNG comp, where you can just run down people with Vladimir Olaf, just run into their backline, while your backline is protected by Zyra and Rumble. But in the SKT comp, they have like big comp, right, with the champions that excel at, like Syndra, for example, she excels at getting vision control and then fighting the pigs, while Olaf is like totally completely opposite of that. He just wants to go in, wants to go ham. And even the early game of Olaf is more of clear rather than, diving, engaging, and it's hard to pressure mid lane. So it will be on FAKER himself, which he does early, but it's expected from Syndra to pressure Vladimir like till, I guess, level 7 or something.
And that's what we're seeing here. I mean, it seems like FAKER's doing such a good job of testing all of this CS in the wave, just punishing XIAOHU left and right.
Yep, and I mean, XIAOHU's taking a pretty big beating. He hasn't activated his potion yet, but still a pretty painful spot for him to be in right now, because the minion wave is so big.
It's stacking up in the favor of FAKER. FAKER not even burning through that much mana. He restores off the Doran's ring here. But this just feels so unfortunate, and early lane pressure has been so crucial. While FAKER does miss a creep there, Alice. It seems like physical pain in your voice.
Yeah, well, it's a cannon minion, so it's not just a normal creep. It's pretty valuable, it's pretty important early on.
Yeah, especially if you're Vladimir and then you miss with the strength of Aegis the cannon. It's a tilter.
Now, as we are in the early game, I want to get a question coming in from John Mundell at John99867_ asks, why do you think Asol hasn't been picked for this series yet? I thought it was one of the best mid-game champions, mid-game champs in the game. Wow.
I think I explained it in the first game. I think the idea of RNG is just neutralizing mid, so basically they don't want a XIAOHU to feed, and I don't think FAKER plays Aurelion Sol. So it's just like they're neutralizing pressure by the Vladimir pick, which is really hard to gank him. It's really hard to kill him 1v1. We can see that FAKER got out of mana, so XIAOHU even trying to like pressure him a bit. And this is pretty much what Vladimir does. He just like, you can see he's taking all the damage in his face, and then he sustains back. And basically the enemy mid laner, he just eventually gets out of mana, and you get a like free laning phase. And now he stops recall, so for FAKER it's gonna be really hard.
This seems so hard, and this is something that you guys mentioned earlier with the Olaf. There's no blue buff to give to FAKER. How big is this right now?
Well, Faker played the laning phase a little bit bizarre, and then also him popping the potion there was really weird unless he thought that mlxg was about to show up, in which case he would need the extra HP. But otherwise, that's a very cookie-cutter mistake to pop the potion and then instantly recall because it's gold inefficient. But him getting stopped here is so brutal because now XIAOHU is able to play this laning phase out in a way that he can bleed Faker's recall. Although it will mean that Faker will get to recall into Lost Chapter, but he's probably going to miss a little bit more CS than he would otherwise have missed.
Yeah, the problem is like when you play Syndra against Vladimir, for example, I kind of like what Faker does and don't like it at the same time because level 1, 2 you can pressure hard, but then you get out of mana and your damage is not enough to actually chunk through all his health regen, and the potion. And basically, if you start your poke a bit earlier, a bit later, you can actually go through all his health and health spot without getting out of mana. And when you have the jungler like Olaf, he cannot really come and help you. It's even hard to just come and push out the lane because Vladimir can still bully you 1v2. And it's basically relying on Faker to do well in lane, which, I mean, here they're equal. And this means that Vladimir will get his free way to the Spectre Skull, and after that it will be really hard for him to do anything.
Aggressive play here on the bottom side. Mana potentially in trouble as Blank runs in. First blood setup, but here comes the TP on the opposite side. Bang, Wolf very low. Looper on the way.
Wait, what?
What?
Why did he actually finish this TP?
Maybe some questionable play coming in there.
Yeah, this is... there was an earlier fight bottom that they wasted the flash, and now...
Looks like there might be some more fighting bot side.
It was a return gank with Wolf flashing and just killing mana. It was actually a good play by SKT. And that TP from Looper was quite questionable. They tried to pressure. They probably try to pressure the turret now bottom because they have no choice. But it will mean that Looper will fall behind.
Yeah, Looper definitely missing out on a decent amount here. Does burn the equalizer as well, I think hoping to chase a kill onto Wolf. But in the meantime, the mid lane continues, and Faker's still pressured out under tower here.
Yeah, the problem with Faker right now is he's trying to find a recall timing, because of the speed at which he CS's the wave, it always means that XIAOHU is going to get an extra wave over Faker. And so he's just trying to time his recall to be the most gold efficient, while Vladimir will be gold inefficient. That's really all it comes down to. He has to already concede that he already botched the lane from the moment that XIAOHU denied the recall.
Yeah, basically, you have to recall in the wave without cannon, so you lose only the wave without cannon, because if you lose the wave with cannon, it's even higher. So you just like gotta find the timing where you have enough gold to buy your items and understand that you lost one wave because you didn't play your lane properly, and then, I mean, the game is not over, just like, it's one wave, it's fine.
Yep.
And even that one wave, of course, only ending up in a 4 CS advantage as Faker now evens it up and pushes this wave back in. XIAOHU will get here at a decent time, but this is the cowl itemization we mentioned earlier. A lot of aggression coming in on the bottom side once again. Mid lane does not seem to be the focus from either of these junglers, but Faker is now going to be grabbing a blue LS. You talked about the potential for Faker to just start bursting people down. With the blue buff now at his disposal, do you think he can take control of this lane?
Well, against the Spectre's Cowl, no. I think that already... Well, he does have double Doran's ring with his Lost Chapter. If he can soften up XIAOHU enough, maybe he can go for some sort of wonky solo kill, but it's not going to be a traditional solo kill in the sense that Syndra stuns and then just does her full combo.
Yeah. Potentially in trouble here, tries to flash out, does miss out on the wall, but does seem set to fall, doing a lot of damage here, trying to pull him back to the equalizer, but Blank honestly running rampant across the map right now.
Finally, they find a way to like kill Looper and put him uncomfortable. I mean, like his TP he falls behind after the TP, and this basically ensures that he will be behind probably for the whole game now against Gnar. And we can see Faker bullying XIAOHU, though I feel like there was a variant for Faker to like roam bottom with the pressure he had, instead of just like sitting mid lane and trying to bully Vladimir.
Once again, a TP completes. LS puts his hands up in the air. What are your thoughts there? Do you think what's going through your head, man? Talk to me.
They should have given it to Gnar. I think that's unacceptable. I mean, at that point, Mana just dies to an auto attack, so there's no reason not to give it to Gnar. Otherwise, the teleport's inefficient.
Yeah, how important is that little bit of gold there for the Gnar?
It's pretty important given that Gnar can't actually stay in the bottom lane and continue to eat the wave without obstructing the lane itself. So it's pretty problematic because it definitely also skews his recall.
You
Yeah,
can see that almost has the phage there, but probably not quite able to
that is
afford
the
it.
problem with like Syndra versus Vladimir. He ulted him, but he just pulls it away. But we can see the pressure he gets with the blue buff, and he basically XIAOHU has to ult for just to get the health back. Same time with the bot lane.
mlxg.
Yeah,
Guys, this happens
just leasing things.
on the alt stream all the time. We're watching FAKER just destroy XIAOHU in terms of mid lane pressure right now, but
I mean, yeah. The thing is, I guess he wants to pressure mid lane, and he likes to get the pressure, but I feel like FAKER has so much pressure that we could have seen TSM doing that a lot, where they pressure, and then they jungler and mid laner just go together on the side lanes, just kill the laners, and then they just get the turrets. But this is not the way SKT play. Usually how they play is FAKER is bullying mid lane so hard that his team is coming to him. And I'm not sure if it's always properly, just like the way SKT plays, and you can't always agree with that. Especially in the matchup like against Vladimir right now. Okay, he got the blue buff and something, but he doesn't even get the CS leads. He basically, all his pressure is going into nothing. While he could have, like, he could have just come to the side lane and just got the turret. He's trying to get the mid turret though, so.
Yeah, one of the things about this, like Alex is actually mentioning, is FAKER would do this regardless of what was happening across the map. And so if what's happening across the map is actually negative for SK Telecom, what you'd see is FAKER start going hyper-aggressive, trying to force something to happen that doesn't need to happen. And that's the sort of stylistic tendencies that I talked about in the pick ban, about one of the problems that SK Telecom's been having with FAKER this tournament.
he wants to go ham, he wants to carry the game, but puts himself in some of those poor positions if his team's at a deficit. Luckily, though, it feels like for SKT, they have built an early lead on the back of Blank and the early ganks going down on the bottom and top side, so maybe not going to see some of those potential flaws coming in from FAKER. RNG do pick up the dragon here, but it gives us a good chance to bring in some more Twitter questions. We've got a lot of questions about the mid lane meta, mid lane champions. Omar L. Butabi at Fairy_Fighter asks, why isn't Lux played? She has safe laning and she does well against all of the less tanky teams, especially mid to late game. That's kind of two questions there. First off, why isn't Lux played, and do you feel like she does have the safe laning?
Do you want to take this?
I mean, I don't think she has a safe laning, especially in the current meta. Was like, where can you can suddenly be against Syndra, and then all the time you get pressured, and compared to Vladimir, you can actually get one shot. And also the problem is against most of the mid laners, they just provide more compared to her in terms of roaming. Like basically Lux and Zeras and Ziggs, like the champions like that, they stay mid lane, they wave clear, they cannot put pressure, and enemy can do whatever he wants to. And I mean, if you want to survive the lane, you could probably play them, but at the same time, you can play stuff like Vladimir. He survives the lane better, and then he can provide more into team fights. Or if you play something like Syndra and you have pressure, you can either, you see, like, put so much pressure that you get the mid turret, or you can put pressure and roam. That's like more of TSM style, what they do. And I mean, just it's really hard in current meta, especially in competitive, play those wave clear mids. And until you're like super good with them, and you know how to use a lot of things like vision control and everything to just like land your skill shots, something what Froggen loves to do, I think it's really hard to pull off.
It just seems like a little bit outclassed by the current mid lane pools. Maybe one day we'll see Lux again, outside of just, of course, Froggen picking it up there in the occasional LCS game. But the game, honestly, this feels a lot like last game. Very SKT favored. Do you think we're going to see the same slow tempo that we saw in the previous game, or do you think SKT now have the tools on this team to kind of speed the game up?
Yeah, I feel like SKT tools are better this time, and I think they're doing a really good job. And FAKER missed the pink ward.
That's the second time he's walked past that pink ward.
That's the third time.
That's the third time.
Okay, all right. No, never mind, he found it. Third time's the charm.
Yeah, just like the problem is when RNG bot lane loses, the game falls apart, it feels. And mlxg is not having the best series. He didn't do, like, in the first game, he wasn't doing much, but Bengi wasn't doing much. And then these two games, I think Blank is outperforming him.
Not something that we often hear. Of course, Blank, did show up some ways at MSI, but did not really perform as well in the playoffs there for SKT. But now showing up a decent amount on the world stage. Do you feel like this is Blank showing up, or is this mlxg kind of underperforming?
I think it's both at the same time. It's like, I think Blank is doing really well, and I think mlxg is underperforming because he was underperforming the whole tournament. And like, because of that, something like they didn't get a kill at the bot lane, but used summoners for that. Then Blank came and they abused the lack of the summoners. After that, the game snowballed super hard because like this is just a chain of events. Looper TP'd when he didn't need to TP. Because of that, he falls behind, he comes top lane, he dies, he falls even further behind. And even though Duke used his TP, he was already so much ahead that it didn't matter. And Faker, doing Faker's things, he just wins the mid lane consistently and just... It's like, if Faker wins the mid lane and side lanes are winning, it's like a free win for SKT. If Faker is winning, side lanes are losing, there is a chance that he just like overextends too hard.
Now XIAOHU's pushing up here. LS, I want to get your thoughts. How does RNG play around the fact that Faker is just so consistently pushing in mid? Can they even afford to? Because it seems like they have 3 completely winning lanes.
Interestingly enough, I thought that Faker's negligence to buying ping wards and also the vision control around mid was actually a little bit lackluster when you consider that it was against a Lee Sin, but mlxg did fall pretty far behind early on. At this point, you just have to concede that mid is gone, and you have to acknowledge that you have a funnel comp in a way via the Rumble ultimate and the Jhin ultimate. And SK Telecom is going to have to come to you, except they have the gear that they can go into poke via the Ezreal, so it's just really problematic. Even though they're only, what are they right now? They're 5,000 gold behind. It's way worse than that right now when you factor in how the team fights are going to take place. There's an Inferno Drake coming up in a minute and a half, which is really problematic for them because they're not going to be in a position to contest it.
And of course, 3 characters on the side of SKT who will use that bonus AD and AP, so additional value, potentially even a little bit coming in from the Karma. This feels grim once again. I mean, I don't think we can say it enough in these games, but
I mean, it just feels even more grim than the previous game because this time they actually have Zyra, Jhin, Lee Sin with the Warriors and Rumble against Syndra. So if it comes to any point, Syndra just press QR and someone dies.
well, this is what's truly scary too, because we mentioned this earlier. We talked about how good the Jhin Zyra is when it's ahead, but
yeah.
I mean, what can it really do when a team falls behind?
I mean, they should be looking for picks and try to set up vision, but usually that is the problem of RNG as a team. They're like good at placing the wards kinda, but they're bad at denying the vision and like cleaving the vision and looking for picks. So when they're ahead, they're like even more like getting ahead and trying to like snowball it. But when they're behind, they usually do a lot of mistakes. And
Mata playing with fire here, does ult and then immediately dies. That would be the one-shot potential we talked about. mlxg is going in, TPs are coming out. Looks like we are going to have a team fight. mlxg set to drop now. XIAOHU trying to kill Faker, is going to get it. Curtain call comes out. Wolf in trouble, flashes to safety. Blank shot once, shot again. Bang is here, has the Frozen Fist to kind of disengage that, but that is absolute chaos. And Looper potentially, nope, not going to get the outplay there in the end.
It's actually a really cute flash. Faker made a pretty huge mistake though by flashing.
Oh, Bang is just going in, by the way. That's just a double kill for the Ezreal. I totally thought that was his ally turret, but no, he's just going to dive Uzi and kill, and this is honestly just a disgusting performance from SKT.
yeah, this is just like what happens if all the 3 lanes loses and like the jungle outperforming your jungler. There is like really no way to come back, especially against the comp like SKT have, because I think their comp even scales better. So you're at the point where your top lane will be ahead and he's a split pusher, your mid laner has a big potential and just one-shot someone in the enemy team, and then your AD carry is probably the best scaling AD carry in the game right now.
Of course, we're going to look at this fight one more time, because we do have replays back. Watch Faker.
Yeah, Faker missed the Q, which ended up actually resulting in Mata living a little bit longer. mlxg's ultimate was pretty poor. Faker continues to go in a little bit, and this is where the flash is just not necessary. Just accept death, because your flash is infinitely more important at a later stage. Like if Faker, once this replay cuts, if Faker has flash up, it equates to a lot more threat than if he just lives there. Because if he lives, it doesn't change the end result of anything. Nothing actually changes. So it's a pretty poor decision by him to flash. Bang and Wolf, though, end up cleaning up and going off. And, I mean, it feels like the game is actually already over when you look at the gold and you look at the team compositions and the fact they RNG'd an Inferno Drake.
Okay, is the game already over? That's the question, LS. Do you feel like there's any option for RNG to come back?
I mean, if it was the other way around and RNG were so ahead of SKT, I would say game is not over. But RNG are not known for their coming back ability. So it's like they will probably be looking for picks with Lee Sin, and they will probably try to look like for picks with Zyra and Jhin. But I mean, then again, like they got a pick on Wolf right now, but Wolf is known for his suicide ability while placing the ward.
Zyra ult, Faker in trouble. They're just completely diving mid lane. Bang is on the way up, however.
Yeah, this is the thing about RNG. They're like going that Chinese style where they group up, try to fight, no matter how they're behind they are. That's probably a good thing for them this time, but they only got the pick on Wolf. And
okay. All right, well.
And we can see that SKT actually getting ahead from this because like Gnar is still pushing. He's getting free waves of farm. He's getting turret. They could even probably just like not even Ben could even just not come mid lane, and he could have been pushing bot lane. And this is what happens in Korean games where they get 3 waves of farm while enemy only getting 1. But yeah, this is just disgusting.
All right, LS.
Yeah.
This has been a little bit of the Alex show because Alex has so much to say about this game, which is good. I love that you're speaking up, but I want to give your thoughts. What the hell went wrong for RNG this game? Because this is gross. This is a 10K gold lead at 20 minutes, and SKT just absolutely dominating. Like, what happened here?
It starts in the bottom lane for the most part. mlxg just fell too far behind, and Lee Sin that's behind is extremely reliant on his ultimate, but he really wasn't able to get very good ultimates. Even that ultimate that happened in the bottom lane got turned relatively easily because Looper didn't have teleport. Looper's teleport early on just set him way too far behind, and that's the one that we kind of just like turned our heads at and like, why didn't you cancel that? I mean, we're seeing a replay right here, and this is just way too overly aggressive because they're never going to find a kill here unless everything goes perfectly for them and SK Telecom dodges nothing. But even if you raise this mid tier 1 turret, it doesn't matter because the pressure being created in top lane and in bottom lane, it doesn't matter. And then if the mid tier 1 turret does fall right here, it just creates more of a wide open area for SK Telecom and RNG to sort of bait each other into fights. Because RNG is not in position to take a Baron, but SK Telecom, oddly enough, is due to how far ahead they are. So
this just seems... I just been saying it too much. I said it seems grim. It is grim. It's the reality of the game. Of course, RNG getting caught out here. Bang, absolutely going off. And XIAOHU, he pushes a cute little proto belt and just gets smacked right back down.
One of the other problems that they're going to be having is as the game actually draws on, magic resistance is going to start to hurt RNG so badly because of how compromised Jhin and mlxg are.
I don't know if they're going to make it that far.
They're not.
RNG is playing Chinese style. It's just like win hard, lose hard. Like they don't stop fighting 10K behind, they still collapses 5 people. No matter what, they go for the fight, they're ready, and then they lose. Then they go again, and then they lose. Like we could see SKT, when they fall behind, they play that calculated, stable game where they look for vision, look for like small gains, where they like crawl back their way to the equal gold, to the equal items, and then they try to come back. While RNG, they're just believing that suddenly, after losing 3 team fights in a row, they're gonna win the 4th, and that's what will turn the game around, but sadly it doesn't happen.
Not happening here in this game against SKT, and we earlier mentioned RNG's shortest game time in the tournament in the group stage. Of course, that is in wins and losses. That is not... They win hard, they lose hard. Makes perfect sense, and we can watch this fight one more time, but look at that. FAKER pushes QR, people start to die. That's just unfortunately the state of things. I don't even think they're going to get, or they finally do get FAKER, but it's costed pretty much every other member of the team.
Well, that's pretty much the problem where, as I mentioned before, Zyra and Jhin are just going to die to that combo every single time. And Rumble, earlier on, he'll be able to live through it when he has a shield, but when Syndra hits the 2-item, 3-item spike, Rumble even dies to it as well. And then we see Lee Sin not building any sort of magic resistance because there's so many sources of physical damage on SK Telecom's team comp, and Bang is gigantic. So this also means that mlxg also dies to that combo. And when your team composition needs to go a little bit in to make stuff happen, it gets really problematic against a Syndra.
And I mean, I feel like we haven't even seen a crazy Gnar ult or an insane flank engage or anything coming from the SKT. It just feels like they're so far ahead. But surprise, it's XIAOHU in the bush. Looks like they will try to get another pick onto Wolf here. That's the second time this game that's happened.
This is just Wolf's things. He's known for that from probably the start of his career, where he goes somewhere alone to ward or like help people or something. He just got in the most random places and dies. And I mean, usually SKT get a lot from that. We can see this Gnar like pushing. It's like it was happening his whole career, and whole career SKT were getting ahead of that. So I'm not even surprised of this happening anymore.
Just Wolf thinks. FAKER going in, maybe looking for another one shot. No one's going to walk into his path or give him the opportunity, but the top side tower does break. XIAOHU and Uzi are here to try to fight Duke. Does use the Gnar to disengage. I don't even know guys, what do you want to talk about? Because right now, I don't think that this is the most stimulating content for those interested in learning about mid lane. Because let me tell you, folks, if you were this hilariously fed on Syndra, this is probably what your solo queue games look like too.
Yeah, it's just like, it's unfortunate chain of events. It's just like, report jungler.
Well, there goes Bang. Good start. Trade 1-for-1 though overall. XIAOHU goes in. They're trying to get something down. In goes the ult. FAKER seems set to fall. FAKER pops.
Yep.
Flank now turning. Wolf on the way. But it might be too little too late. Mata's got him in the pinch.
Yeah, the problem is RNG is actually pressing onto this. I don't think they realize there's a giant prehistoric something in their base.
He's a Yordle. He's a prehistoric Yordle.
They just have to do this because they have no choice. They're so far behind that they have to go onto the one side and they just butcher the other. They either go on Duke and then they lose bottom, or they go on the bottom and they lose top side. And I mean, they're just so far behind that it takes them so long, even when they win it, to actually kill them. And this was actually a super cool and clean play from mlxg. But the problem is, like, all the previous things that happened in this game felt that RNG is so behind that I would have still reported him as my jungler. But I mean, this is just unfortunate chain of events where when your first gank fails as Lee Sin and you fall behind of something like Olaf that clears the jungle faster and does more, it is really hard to come back in the game. And this is why like people didn't value Lee Sin that much lately.
One of the things about, well, coming back in the game and speaking about itemization is FAKER actually just made a really big blunder with the Void Staff purchase, because the magic resistance on 4 of RNG's champions would actually be greater impacted by an Abyssal Scepter than the Void Staff, because the percentage does not actually equate to a greater reduction in MR. So that's also interesting, because RNG's sources of damage to delete FAKER is going to be magic as well, so it's not just sustainability, it's actually enhanced damage. So pretty weird to see a player of his caliber make that sort of a basic math mistake.
I think that's just the way FAKER builds. He always like go for the scaling builds, because like Abyssal just doesn't scale, even though it's better at this point. And that's probably, if we compare him to someone like Abdo, that he always goes for more effective builds to the time. Like he goes Abyssal when he needs to, when he understands that it's more like mathematically better, while FAKER is probably doing, like he's doing a lot of weird things with his runes masteries that are less effective. And I think FAKER is more reliant on his mechanics, and this is what he's praised for.
Yep.
Of course, now you can see what looks like to be a solo kill as Uzi goes in. Heal comes out. Actually looks like Duke may have overextended, but his resources are being burned on the top side. SKT continues to push in on the bottom. Now, got a couple questions coming in from Twitter as we watch the slow death of Duke.
This is what I said before, like you need so many people to kill Duke, or you need so many people to kill...
Rage is building! Not like this, MLXG.
Goodbye.
Not like this.
Goodbye.
Oh, no. That's...
He's probably tilted for the rest of the series.
Oh, man.
All right, well, Cora Strobe Seppi at Castle_Wars, thank you for sending in another question, asks, who has stood out the most this game, good and bad?
I think Bank stood out this series overall because he had really spectacular performance every game. He's like that stable force of SKT that does the most damage, that is like super consistent. He doesn't really get out of position. He always gets the CS leads. He always, even when he loses the lane, he's still there. Like he's still doing what he is needed from the champion he plays. I mean, he's just like the player that stands out the most for me in SKT.
Yep, I completely agree that Bang has been creating a lot of his own advantages and going extremely aggressive against RNG, so I agree with Alex there. I think the most standout odd performance, I guess, is Wolf, though, with his bizarre vision. His vision roam timings or something, trying to secure vision and dying twice.
Yeah, for me it's either, I guess, more because RNG are losing, it's either mlxg or Looper. Looper was that teleport that he didn't cancel that just folded him so far behind and made the game really hard. Or mlxg just because, like, I mean, he tried to force plays and I gave him the credit on that and listen, but because all the plays failed.
Before. Oh no, but now it's more people you hope.
Yeah, the Gnar that refused to die.
Pretty sure they're tilted right now.
I mean, it's something we talk a lot about, but how important is mental fortitude in a best of 5 like this?
I mean, it's really important because, like, after the game 2, where they lost at like level 2 the game, and then they stalled it out, but I mean, it was really hard for them to come back. Their mental fortitude could be shaken because they're trying to force so many plays and everything, and it just falls apart everywhere. And then they don't cancel TP, and then just like they're falling further and further behind. While SKT, when they lost the first game, it didn't even seem that they cared that much. It's just like they're just wherever they're so used to like winning, losing. I think their career started with them like losing 2-0 and then coming back with 3-2. So the mental fortitude of SKT as a team is huge.
Pretty crazy. Of course, as we're watching the Nexus slowly die here, we may have one more team fight, but that gives us time for one more Twitter question. AnkoCS at Anko_CX asks, why do you think Flash plus Ghost has become more popular or more regular in the mid lane?
I think I answered the question already, but I guess the most reason is the 2v2 mid lane is not that often that valuable anymore, and most of the time Ghost Summoner cooldown is the lowest. And if enemy takes Ghost, it counters it. It counters stuff like Sivir. It's just basically, you don't want your mid laner to die, because if you die, you lost the game. So Ghost helps in terms of not dying and killing the enemy. And then it's the best teamfight summoner, which Dada showed a while back, before even it got buffed. And I mean, it just gives you everything. And heal or ignite are good in the case you actually go for that 2v2 mid lane, but it doesn't happen that often anymore.
Yeah, not very often seeing the solo kills. Didn't even see it this game, although FAKER did have an all-star performance. And across the board, SKT absolutely stomped this game. That was crazy. I mean, looking back, unfortunately for RNG, it seems like after that game 1, SKT has put on the gas. Coming into game 3, I asked this at the end of last game as well, or coming into game 4 now, I suppose. What do RNG have to do? How do you stop the bleeding here? Because this is looking harder and harder. Game 2 was rough, but this game was completely one-sided.
I think if RNG has some sort of surprise or pocket pick that they're hiding, now you have to actually bring it out just to tie up the series, which is unfortunate because usually that's something that you either reserve if you're up 2 games from match point or you're at match point 2-2. So that's a little bit problematic, but I don't know what they can do because it's also, I would be very surprised if they're not severely tilted after these 2 losses because they were so dramatic losses. I don't know what you're going to do. I also don't know why they left open Syndra. That was actually very bizarre for me.
Do you think the play there was to give Blank the opportunity to play Nidalee?
I have no idea. Well, they banned Nidalee. That was
that's what I'm saying. Instead of banning Nidalee, do you think you leave the Nidalee open and ban Syndra there? Do you think that is the decision to make?
I don't think that's nearly as good of a trade-off as the other way around. I think giving Blank Nidalee and not letting FAKER have Syndra would be infinitely better.
Well, we'll have to see how they are going to adapt their draft, because coming up next on the Player Experience stream, we're turning the single-focus Fog of War back on for a walk in RNG shoes. We'll see a thing from Royal's perspective as they battle for their tournament lives, but until then, we'll send you back to the main stream for Dash and the Analyst Desk. We'll see you back here.